So Deontay Wilder and most of the fanboys that follow him are calling Anthony Joshua a coward, among other things, since the WBA have ordered Anthony Joshua to face his mandatory Alexander Povetkin. The WBA have been very, very patient with Joshua. They've given him, I think, 2 months to negotiate the Wilder fight. It's either a month or 2 months. It's been a long time anyway. They've given him an extension to try and negotiate the Wilder fight, but now they're putting their foot down. And somehow this means that Joshua is a coward in the eyes of these Wilder fanboys and Wilder himself. You know, that the Wilder knows that Joshua's got a mandatory that is there and who is putting their foot down and wants to fight. Wilder knows this. His team know this. So the fact that the WBA have decided to enforce it, it shouldn't shock anyone. And the Wilder people are saying, well, clearly there's collusion between Team Joshua and the WBA, even though they've given him all these weeks and weeks to try and negotiate the Wilder fight. Why didn't they, if the WBA were going to get Anthony Joshua out of this Wilder fight, why didn't they do it 3, 4, 5 weeks ago? What was the point in allowing it to be dragged on for this long? Why didn't they just set it up weeks ago and be done with it? Get the Povetkin fight on weeks ago. Why would they give him this extension to do all these negotiations? What for? Anyway, I'm going to get to the situation later on in this video. I'm also going to talk about the back and forth between the two camps, because both camps have done things which are a little strange, and both camps have done things which leave themselves open for criticism. So I'll cover that later on in the video. But for now, I want to address this claim that Wilder is making and Wilder's fanboys are making, that Joshua is a coward. Okay, so let's compare the careers of Deontay Wilder and Anthony Joshua. And you know why? Because talk is cheap. It's easy to call somebody a coward. You don't find out what they're really about just based on their words. You find out what they're really about based on their actions. So let's see the actions that both fighters have taken in their careers and find out whether or not Anthony Joshua really is a coward. So first of all, let's look at their amateur backgrounds. Now, neither guy had that many amateur fights. Both guys were Olympians. Deontay Wilder competed at the 2008 Olympics, and Joshua competed in the Olympics 4 years later in 2012. Deontay Wilder had 35 amateur fights. Joshua had, where is it now? 43 amateur fights. So neither guy had a lot of amateur fights. Relatively speaking, they were both inexperienced amateurs, but they managed to achieve a fair amount in their short amateur careers. So both inexperienced amateurs. Then they turned professional. Wilder turned pro way back in 2008. And, you know, right after the Olympics. Joshua turned pro back in 2013, a year after he was in the Olympics. Now, Joshua's first fight of any significance was his 15th fight, I would say. I mean, let's not talk about Gary Cornish. He was unbeaten 21-0 at the time, but whatever. Dillian Whyte was his first significant fight. That was in Joshua's 15th fight. Dillian Whyte was 16-0. Look where Dillian Whyte is right now. Dillian Whyte is highly ranked across all the sanctioning bodies, and he's taken on a former world champion in Joseph Parker. That's the caliber of opponent that Anthony Joshua fought in his 15th fight. Now, if Anthony Joshua is this coward that Wilder and all Wilder's fanboys are making him out to be, then logic would dictate that in Wilder's 15th fight, right, because they're both inexperienced amateurs, they had a similar number of amateur fights, very similar amateur careers. So if what Wilder and his fanboys are saying is true and Joshua was a coward, then Wilder must have fought somebody much better than Dillian Whyte in Wilder's 15th fight. That's what we're going to see, right? When we click on Wilder's record. I mean, Dillian Whyte is a guy who Wilder has turned down several times, and he was offered millions to fight Dillian Whyte, and he turned it down several times. So clearly, in Wilder's 15th fight, he must have fought somebody much better than Dillian Whyte. Let's have a look. Where are we at? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Okay, he fought this guy here. DeAndre Abron, Never heard of him in my life. At the time he was 15-6. Let's take a look at this guy who must be better than Dylan White. Oh, he's only a cruiserweight. Well, he must be an amazing cruiserweight, surely. He must be better than Dylan White because, I mean, Joshua was a coward, right? Joshua wouldn't fight anybody better than DeAndre Abron. Oh, God, look at all this red here. Oh, damn, I thought this guy was supposed to be better than Dylan White. This is the guy that Wilder was fighting in his 15th fight. Jeez. This guy lost to Yusuf Mack. This guy, who Wilder fought in his 15th fight, lost to Yusuf Mack before he fought Deontay Wilder. Jeez. And going into the Wilder fight, he was on a 5-fight losing streak going into the Wilder fight. This guy. So clearly this guy's not better than Dylan White, is he, people? So red flag number 1 when it comes to Joshua apparently being a coward, because you don't look at what people say, you look at what they do when you want to find out their character, their true character. Joshua was fighting way better fighters than Deontay Wilder was in his 15th fight. Yeah, you compare them at the same stage in their career. And again, both had similar amateur careers. Yeah, Joshua was not one of these guys who had hundreds of amateur fights. No, he had a similar number of fights to what Wilder had. Let's go look at their 16th fight. Maybe this was just an anomaly. Maybe Wilder fought somebody incredible in his 16th fight. First of all, let's look at Joshua's 16th fight. Now, Joshua's 16th fight was a world title challenge against Charles Martin, who was 23-0 with 1 draw. So clearly, all right, this time we'll find out that Wilder fought somebody better than Charles Martin in his 16th fight. Let's see here. Okay. Reggie Penner, 6-6. Damn. Is this guy better than Charles Martin? Don't even have a picture for him. Another cruiserweight? What? Wow. And he only had 1 KO in 6 fights? This is who Wilder fought in his 16th. Look at that record, people. Look at that record. And going into the Wilder fight, wow, he lost to Yaneski Gonzalez when Gonzalez was 3-0. Gonzalez is a light heavyweight. Going into the Wilder, and he lost to Sullivan Barrera as well. He got knocked out in 2 rounds by Sullivan Barrera. All right. That's the guy that Wilder fought in his 16th fight. And he was on a 4-fight losing streak going into the Wilder fight. So clearly this guy's not better than Charles Martin, is he? No, he's not. But somehow Joshua's a coward. Okay, well, let's keep analyzing the records then. Seeing who the coward is. All right. 17th fight. Who did Joshua fight? Dominic Brazil. 17-0. An Olympian. Let's see who Wilder fought. It must have been somebody better than Brazil in his 17th fight. Must have been. Damon Reed. Damn, 46-15. Let's have a look at Damon Reed. So this is Damon Reed. Another cruiserweight? How many cruiserweights has this guy fought? You know, Joshua's fighting Brazil, who's like 6'7", 250, 260. And Wilder's fighting Damon Reed, another cruiser. So he's fighting back-to-back cruiserweights, basically. In his 15th, 16th, and 17th fights. Let's look at his record. Oh my gosh, he was coming off a losing streak as well. He lost back-to-back fights to Hasim Ratman, who must have been ancient at the time. You see Ratman there with 7 losses. And James Toney, who was even more ancient, coming off back-to-back losses to Toney and Ratman when he fought Wilder. That was Wilder's 17th fight. He'd also lost to Monty Barrett, Roman Greenberg. Wow, remember him? He was like a British-based Israeli. Was he Israeli? I know he was Jewish. Heavyweight who never went anywhere. Dennis Matthews. Why does that name ring a bell? I'm trying to look for some other names that I recognize on this record here, people. Yeah, he really is a cruiserweight. No, I don't recognize any of them names, just looking through quickly. But anyway, this is the guy that Deontay Wilder fought in his 17th fight. I think it's fair to say this guy's not as good as Dominic Brazil. Yes, we all in agreement? Okay, let's move on. We're still trying to find out where in Joshua's record he's shown cowardice. Because you would expect that Deontay Wilder would be fighting a better level of opposition because he's not the coward, right? It's Joshua who's the coward. So you compare their careers fight by fight at the same stage and look at the quality of opposition they've been facing. Anyway, next fight, Joshua's 18th fight. Was it his 18th? Let's double check before I lose count. Yeah, it was. Okay, Joshua's 18th fight, he fought Eric Molina. Now, Molina was 25-3. Not the greatest heavyweight, but, you know, you bang a little bit. Let's see who Deontay Wilder fought in his 18th fight. After Damon Reed, he fought Dominique Alexander. Let's click on this guy. This guy must be better than Eric Molina, right? Dominique. Another cruiserweight? People, this is getting crazy now. How many cruiserweights did Deontay Wilder fight? He's fighting all these cruiserweight journeymen. What's going on here? Another cruiserweight. Okay, let's see who he's actually fought, this dude. And another guy coming off a losing streak. He lost to Cedric Boswell in 2 rounds. Do you know how old Cedric Boswell is, people? Cedric Boswell used to be Lennox Lewis's sparring partner when Lewis was in his prime. I'm not joking. That's how old Boswell is. And this guy got knocked out by Cedric Boswell in 2 rounds back in 2011. Then he got knocked out by Tony Grano. Sorry, he didn't. Yeah, he did. TKO loss. And he was down 3 times in the 6th. Then he fought Deontay Wilder in Wilder's 18th fight. Wow. He also lost to Vinny Madelone, an ancient Shannon Briggs. Odliner Solis knocked him out in a round. Carly Meehan knocked him out in 2 rounds. Freza Kendo, who was ancient, knocked him out in 3. Krzysztof Wlodarczyk, the cruiserweight, knocked him out in 1. This is the guy. This guy, right? A cruiserweight journeyman. This is the guy that Deontay Wilder fought in his 18th fight. A guy coming off losses. Just like all the previous opponents I've showed you of Wilder. But I thought Joshua was the coward. Isn't Joshua the coward? So how come Joshua's fighting way better opposition in his first 18 fights than Wilder did? I thought Joshua was supposed to be the coward. Isn't Wilder the brave one? Isn't he the warrior? So what's going on here? What is wrong with this picture? All right, let's move on. Maybe those were just anomalies. Maybe Wilder's resume is going to get dramatically better in his next couple fights that I'm going to analyze here. Let's hope so, all right? Because we're trying to run with this narrative that it's Joshua who's the coward here. Joshua who's not the true champion and the true fighter. Anyway, moving on to Joshua's... So anyway, we've established that guy... Where was he? Where was the guy? Dominique Alexander. That guy is clearly not better than Eric Molina. Clearly. He's not even a heavyweight. Moving on to their next fight. Anthony Joshua fought Vladimir Klitschko. And did I mention that he fought for the heavyweight title against Martin? And then defended it against Brazil and Molina before taking on Klitschko? Did I mention that? Wilder wasn't anywhere near fighting a world title at that stage of his career. So then Joshua fights Klitschko. Klitschko, that was Joshua's 19th fight. Okay, going into the Klitschko fight. Klitschko, man. Look at his resume. What was he going in the Joshua fight? 64-4. That's what Klitschko was going into the Joshua fight. So, surely Deontay Wilder fought somebody better than Klitschko in his 19th fight, right? Because Joshua's the coward. Wilder is the one who's so brave. He's the real champion, the real fighter, the real man. So he must have fought somebody way better than Klitschko in his 19th fight. Let's have a look. Daniel Cota is who Deontay Wilder fought in his 19th fight. Is this guy better than Klitschko? 17-3-1. Let's have a look at Daniel Cota. Okay, this guy's a heavyweight for once. Jeez. All the other guys Wilder was fighting were all cruiserweights. Interestingly, I don't have his age on here. Maybe he was born before they started having birth certificates and keeping track of people's ages. I don't know. But he's no age on there. Let's find his fight with Deontay Wilder here. Where are we at? Okay, here. Wow. Okay, so this is the first guy that we've analyzed so far that was actually coming off wins going into the Wilder fight. The first guy was actually a heavyweight, and the first guy who's coming off wins. I mean, wins against extremely poor opposition, but still wins nonetheless. Gets knocked out by Wilder in 3, then goes on a losing streak as soon as he starts fighting people with a pulse. I mean, he lost to a couple guys here who... Sol Montana, Ramiro, Reducino. Oh, I don't even know how to pronounce that name. I just butchered it. Anyway, suffice to say, this guy is nowhere near as good as Vladimir Klitschko. Let's move on. It's not looking good for Wilder at the moment in terms of him being so much braver and while Anthony Joshua being a coward. It's not looking good for Wilder right now. He just seems to be all talk if we're looking at their resumes. Yeah, it's not about what people say, it's about what they do, it's about their actions. You look at their resumes and analyze them at the same stages of their careers. So Joshua in his 19th fight fought Klitschko. In his 20th fight, he fought Carlos Takam. Surely this time, in Wilder's 20th fight, he must have fought somebody better than Takam. All right, because Joshua was a coward. He don't fight nobody. He's scared. He ain't got no heart. So let's see who Wilder fought in his 20th fight. David Long, 11-1 with 2 draws. This guy must be better than Takam, surely. Okay, no picture. From Cincinnati, Ohio. Okay. This guy lost to Grover Young, who I know is a light heavyweight, or was a light heavyweight back in the days. This guy got knocked out by Grover Young fought Sergey Kovalev. I ain't lying, people. This is Grover Young. Grover Young is like a super middleweight / light heavyweight. Let me show you where he... Look at his record. And this guy knocked out. Yeah, he knocked out the dude that Wilder fought in his 20th fight. I ain't like... There you go, Sergey Kovalev. Grover Young. Accidental foul, right? Grover Young fought Kovalev. Grover Young turned pro at super middleweight. Jesus, people. We're talking about a super middleweight who got morbidly obese, moved up in weight to become a journeyman, and still managed to knock out the guy that Deontay Wilder fought in his 20th fight. It's not looking good, people. It is not looking good. But again, thankfully, mercifully, he was coming off a win going into the Wilder fight. But it don't say much, does it? This David Long character. Clearly not as good as Carlos Takam. Anyway, moving on to Joshua's next fight. A heavyweight unification. Remember, these are all world title fights. Charles Martin, Brazil. Molina, Klitschko, Takam, Parker. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 world title fights within his first 21 fights. Okay, so his 21st fight was against Joseph Parker, 24-0 WBO heavyweight champion. His 21st fight. Let's see who Deontay Wilder fought in his 21st fight. Must be better than Joseph Parker, right? Must be. Marlon Hayes. That's who Wilder fought. Whoa, 23-10? Huh? Is he better than Parker? He must be. That just must be 10 bad decisions. He got robbed 10 times on the cards, surely. Let's have a look at this Marlon Hayes guy. Oh, not another cruiserweight. Jeez. 47 years old? 5'9"? Oh, no. And this is who Deontay Wilder fought in his 21st fight? This guy must be better than Joseph Parker, though, surely. Let's have a look at his record here. Where's Wilder at? Oh, my God. There's Wilder, right? This was Wilder's 21st fight. And this guy was coming off. This guy lost to Jadon Codrington. People, this guy lost to Jadon from the Contender. You know the guy who got slept by Alan Green? Green knocked this guy out cold in about 20 seconds, less than 20 seconds. And this dude who Wilder fought in his 21st fight lost to Jadon Codrington. He lost to Stieglitz. He lost to Stevenson. This guy's losing to light heavyweights. Then he goes, geez, people, look at that. He lost to Stevenson, and a couple fights later he loses to Wilder. Imagine going from fighting Stevenson to Wilder. So in Wilder's 21st fight, he fought a guy who was getting knocked out by... This is a guy who was a journeyman at light heavyweight. That's who Wilder fought in his 21st fight. This warrior. This guy who's calling Anthony Joshua a coward. When Joshua was fighting Joseph Parker in a heavyweight title unification in his 21st fight, Wilder was fighting this guy. The proof is in the pudding, people. Talk is cheap. You can call somebody a coward. Look who they've been fighting. It's not even remotely close. And once again, any donut, any clown who's trying to run around talking about, oh, Joshua had loads of amateur... No, Joshua did not had loads of amateur fights. Joshua was 40-3. He had 43 amateur fights. Deontay Wilder had an approximate amateur record of 35 amateur fights, 30-5. They had very similar amateur careers. Neither one of them had a lot of amateur fights. You can't use that BS excuse. It don't fly. So why is it that Anthony Joshua made so much more progress inside his first 21 fights than Deontay Wilder did? I thought Joshua was a coward. Why was Wilder still fighting road sweepers and milkmen and grocery store clerks? Why was he still fighting those guys when Joshua was unifying belts and fighting people like Klitschko, Takam, Parker, etc.? When he was doing that, Wilder was taking on people that had been knocked out at light heavyweight by Jadon Codrington or beaten by Codrington, knocked out by Stevenson and whatnot. That's who Wilder was fighting. And the guy's calling Joshua a coward. You compare their resumes like for like. It's not even close, people. And moving on, because Joshua's resume stops there. He's only had 21 fights. Look at all he's achieved in 21 fights. You look at what Wilder's achieved in 21 fights. He's achieved nothing in 21 fights. The first time that Deontay Wilder fought somebody with a pulse was Berman Stavern. Prior to that, he ain't fought nobody with a pulse. Stavern, at the time, all right, Wilder was 32-0 going into the fight. So it took Wilder 32 fights before he agreed to sign to fight somebody with a pulse. 32 fights. I thought this guy is a warrior. I thought this guy is the one who has all the heart, and it's Joshua who's the coward. What's that all about? So Stavern was 24-1 going into the Wilder fight. Yeah? So he goes on, he fights Stavern. And what happens after he fights Stavern and wins the WBC heavyweight title? Where are we at? Let me find it here for you people. Uh-oh. This is what Shelly Finkel, right? Mr. Shelly Finkel, the guy who all the Wilder fanboys are making out as though Shelly Finkel is the bastion of truthfulness and morality. Shelly Finkel. If you think that Shelly Finkel don't tell lies, then you either don't know Shelly Finkel or you are unbelievably deluded. Maybe both. People act like Eddie Hearn is the only person in boxing who bends the truth and tells lies. Hell no. Do I trust everything Eddie Hearn says? Do I believe everything he says? Hell no. I've questioned many things that Eddie Hearn has said over the years. I don't trust any boxing promoter to tell the truth all the time. Hell no. They're obviously going to give you a biased perspective because they're representing their client. But that goes for Shelly Finkel too. As a boxing manager, what, you think Shelly Finkel never told lies? Joke business. You want to know about the integrity or lack thereof of Shelly Finkel? Go speak to Steve Lott. You know Steve Lott? the guy who was a close friend and confidant of Mike Tyson for many years during Tyson's prime. Go ask Steve Lott about Shelly Finkel. Go chat to Steve Lott on Facebook. He's very accessible. Go talk to him about Shelly Finkel. And then come back to me and act like Shelly Finkel is some bastion of morality and truth. Joke ting. Joke business. Don't give me no rubbish about Shelly Finkel and everything he says is true. You see, there's this silly meme that a lot of these Wilder fanatics are running with now. Eddie says, they put in quotation marks, Eddie says. And if you say Eddie says anything, it means you're a Hearn fanboy and you don't know what you're talking about and you're crazy. Well, you're saying Shelly says. You're saying Wilder says. What makes them any more credible than Eddie Hearn? What makes them any more truthful than Hearn? Yeah, you talk about the things that Shelly Finkel's been involved in, the fights he's put together. What fights has he put together involving Wilder? Forget about all the other fighters he's been working with. What fights has he put together with Wilder? Because we're talking about a fighter now. Finkel's not the one getting in the ring fighting, so Finkel might have done this and that with Mayweather and whoever in the past with Mike Tyson. What's he done with Wilder? You compare what Finkel's done with Wilder to what Eddie Hearn has done with Joshua. It's night and day. Hearn and Joshua have moved their career way faster. They moved Joshua's career way faster. They fought way better fighters in a far shorter time frame than Deontay Wilder and Shelly Finkel have done. Facts. And here we have Shelly Finkel saying that Deontay Wilder will not be rushed into the Klitschko fight. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. This is when Wilder was 33-0 and he was ducking Klitschko. 33-0. How many fights did he need before he'd be willing to step in the ring with Klitschko? Well, he never stepped in the ring with Klitschko. All them years he's been champion, he's never stepped in the ring with Klitschko. Ain't that funny? Fought Stavern, Molina, Duopa, Spilka, Areola, Washington. All this time, all right? Give or take maybe the Washington fight. I can't remember which year it was now that. Was it 2015, 2016 when, must have been 2015 or 2016 when Tyson Fury beat Klitschko. But for the majority of Deontay Wilder's reign, Klitschko was champion, right? Why didn't he make the Klitschko fight, or for at least the first 2 years anyway, or something like that? Why didn't he make the Klitschko fight? Huh? Anthony Joshua fought Klitschko as a voluntary, people. He didn't have to fight Klitschko. Nobody forced him into that fight. He voluntarily gave Klitschko a shot. Why didn't Wilder give Klitschko a shot? He had the opportunity to, right? He's working with this Shelly Finkel character who you guys are acting like is the best thing that's ever happened to boxing. Shelly Finkel. Why didn't Shelly Finkel put together Klitschko Wilder? Joke business. The proof is in the pudding. You don't watch what somebody says, you watch what they do. You look at their track record. Wilder's track record when it comes to fighting quality opposition, let's be real, people, it is poor. Very poor. 33 fights in. He ducked Klitschko for several years. His manager Finkel said he won't be rushed into the Klitschko fight. Look, let me quote Finkel. Finkel said, look, Wilder is a baby winning the title. It was his first title fight. There'll be a time for unifications. There'll be a time for those things. He could go and fight Povetkin in Russia and make 10 million. It's not the right thing yet. Give him a couple of fights, maybe bring him back to Alabama. Let him develop just like any other athlete. They don't take someone who is a great college prospect and throw him right in. This kid is a great prospect. He's calling the guy a prospect when he's 33-0 and he's just won a version of the world title. He's calling him a prospect and blatantly keeping him away from Vladimir Klitschko. I thought this guy was a warrior. 33 fights in. I thought this guy is the opposite of a coward, right? Because he's calling Joshua a coward when Joshua fought Klitschko in like his 19th fight. And yeah, okay, you can say Klitschko wasn't as good as when Wilder was 33-0, but Klitschko was still way better than the guys Wilder was fighting in his 19th fight. Klitschko was still way better than Stavern, the guy who Wilder fought in his 33 fight. The version of Klitschko that Joshua fought was way better than the Stavern Deontay Wilder fought. Way better than Molina, Duopa, any of these guys. But yet you're questioning Joshua's heart. You're questioning his integrity. And you just look at Wilder's resume and it tells you all you need to know. The first guy with a pulse in his 33rd fight. And then he's fighting fringe contenders. Washed up Areola. He eventually fights Luis Ortiz. We don't even know how good Luis Ortiz is, people. We don't know how good he is. He beat Bryant Jennings. Other than that, who else did he beat? He didn't look good against Dave Allen and a washed up Malik Scott. We don't know how good Luis Ortiz is. And one thing we know is that he's old. Yeah, we know he's old. And in fact, the general consensus in boxing is that Luis Ortiz is a lot older than the 39 years of age he's listed as. Very few people believe he's only 39. So you look at Wilder's resume. Stavern when he first fought him. Ortiz. Some fringe contenders in between. And other than that, absolute cans. Road sweepers. Grocery clerks. Bus conductors. That's who Wilder's been fighting. And this is a guy who over the years I've defended many times. Not defended in a delusional way. No, I acknowledge the massive gaping holes in Deontay Wilder's resume. I acknowledge the fact that he was wrapped in cotton wool and protected for many years. I've acknowledged that. But I also acknowledge that he is talented. He's a tremendous puncher. And that some of the guys he fought weren't as bad as some people were trying to make them out to be. And he still got rid of them at the end of the day. But when you compare like for like, when you compare who Wilder has fought during his championship reign to who Joshua's fought during his championship reign, people, it's not even close. Joshua has fought far better opposition. And when you compare who they fought in their first 21 fights, it's not even close. So who's the coward really? Whose integrity is really in question when you analyze what they've actually done? Because that's where you find out the truth. You don't find it out through what people say. You find it out through what they do, looking at their track record. Look what Wilder's done compared to what Joshua's done. Look at Wilder's team blatantly coming out when a man's 33 fights in, saying we're not going to fight Klitschko. Blatantly ducking the Klitschko fight. Yeah. Joshua's only had 21 fights. Was Wilder a coward for ducking Klitschko? Because that's what he did. He ducked Klitschko when he was 33 fights in. Joshua's only had 21 fights and he's fought Klitschko already. You people calling Anthony Joshua a coward, it's farcical. It's some joke business. That's what it is. Joke business. Now, let's move on to talking about the back and forth between the two camps. Now, both teams have done some pretty strange things and things that have made me scratch my head throughout this whole negotiation, if you want to call it that. First of all, let me talk about the things which the Wilder fanboys are using as evidence that Joshua or his team don't want the fight. First of all, they say Joshua turned down a $50 million offer. Why would he do that? Well, he's afraid. They said Joshua never really wanted to fight, and that the only reason the WBA have mandated this Povetkin fight when they have is to help Joshua get out of the Deontay Wilder fight. They say Deontay Wilder accepted Joshua's offer, his latest offer, but it was Joshua who was messing around with the contract and not sending it back in time, and them delaying the fight because, yeah, Joshua was scared. This is what the Wilder fanboys, fangirls in more accurate terms, are running with. This is what they're saying. Then we move over to the Joshua side. The Joshua side is saying, well, Joshua was the one who made the offer in the first place. If it wasn't for Joshua reaching out and making an offer, there wouldn't have even been a negotiation. And this is a fact. Joshua's team reached out and they were the first ones to initialize contact and try and make this fight happen. They put out the first offer to Deontay Wilder for $12 million, way more than he's ever got paid for any other fight. Deontay Wilder turned it down. And not only did he turn it down, but his team, more accurately, Shelly Finkel, or more precisely should I say, Shelly Finkel refused to meet with Eddie Hearn when Eddie Hearn several times tried to arrange meetings with Shelly Finkel. Initially, the meetings were agreed and then Finkel just didn't show. That's what happened. So it did not look at all as though Deontay Wilder's team wanted to fight. Because why would you turn down meetings? Why would you give a $50 million offer with a 24-hour time limit on it? That don't make any sense. A 24-hour time limit and no contract, that's not a serious offer. After that, they started negotiating more behind the scenes after they managed to actually have some email correspondence and start talking serious business. But at that stage, yes, Joshua did turn down an offer of whatever it was. We don't know if it was 50 million or what it was until we see paperwork, but he did turn down an offer. And one thing I can say, whether it was 50 million or not, it was an offer that Eddie Hearn said was a good offer. So let's not try and make out that it was a terrible offer that Team Wilder offered Joshua to fight in the States. It wasn't. It was a good offer. But that was only for a fight in the States. That was not for a fight in the UK, as some people are falsely claiming. Yeah, the offer that Wilder's team made for Joshua was for a fight in the United States, not a fight in the UK. It was a good offer. Hearn himself admitted it was a good offer. Joshua turned it down because he said he wanted to fight in the UK because it's such a historical matchup and he wants to reward his fans. Now that was some BS. I'm not buying that for a second. There's no way that Joshua would turn down an extra whatever 15% on what he would get fighting in the UK, fighting in the States. Fighting in the States to get an extra 15-20% maybe. He's not going to turn that down for the fans. No. He's turning it down because he wants home advantage. In terms of the officiating and the atmosphere and all that kind of stuff, he wants home advantage because he understands this is a dangerous fight. And Joshua hasn't traveled for any of his world title fights so far. He hasn't really seemed keen on traveling. That has to be said. But then again, there have been many great fighters who were never keen on traveling abroad. Roy Jones Jr. in his prime never wanted to travel abroad. Floyd Mayweather never traveled abroad in his prime. Andre Ward never traveled abroad in his prime, although he was willing to fight a rematch with Carl Froch in the UK. But other than that, Andre Ward never fought abroad. All of the fights in the United States. So many fighters never fought abroad. Many great fighters. And Joshua's still only 21 fights in. There's plenty of time for him to go fight abroad. All right? He is looking for home advantage. And that's why people are saying and that's why I certainly think he didn't want to fight Wilder in the United States. Now, some people say, well, Joshua asked for this 50 million. And then when he was given the 50 million, he turned it down. That makes him look stupid. And I agree. If it was 50 million he was offered, we don't know it was that exact amount. But he was certainly offered a lot. That's what we can say. Yeah, for sure. He was offered a lot and he turned it down. That does make Joshua look stupid. That does make Joshua, look like a guy whose bluff was called a little bit. Because he acted like, yeah, give me this money and I'll fight wherever in the world. I won't even care. You can handle the whole promotion. He did go against that. Yeah, he did go against that. Clearly because he didn't think they'd come up with any kind of offer. He didn't think they could make an offer. He thought he was so much the A side that only his side could make offers. And clearly he was wrong about that. So he did look a bit foolish about that. But still, he then went and made a counter offer to Wilder. Wilder's team had a couple of issues with the contract. They asked for clarification. Eddie Hearn claims that he's given clarification, and then the WBA have stepped in and called this mandatory. And this mandatory that Joshua has with Povetkin, this is something that Wilder's team have known about. This is why there's a lot of people saying that Wilder's team wanted to prolong these negotiations with Joshua because they knew that he would be forced to fight Povetkin. They knew they wouldn't have to go through with the Joshua fight because Joshua has to fight Povetkin. And the WBA have given Joshua, what, a month or 2 months extension? Why would they do that if they were just going to step in and block the fight on Joshua's behalf? I mean, I'm talking about the fight between Joshua and Wilder. Why wouldn't they have just called it months ago and saved everybody all the hassle? That's a question you have to ask yourselves. So, you know, it's one of them kind of situations where we're trying to figure out the picture when we've got half the puzzle pieces missing. That's what we're all trying to do. Any one of these Wilder fanboys who's claiming they know exactly what's going on behind the scenes, they're lying. Yeah, just tell them straight, you're lying. You don't know what's going on behind the scenes. You are doing what we're doing. You're trying to piece together a picture when half the puzzle pieces are missing. You're doing the same thing. But what I do is I look at the track records of both teams, the track records of both fighters, and their resumes are not even close, people. In the first 21 fights, it's not close. In their championship reigns, it's not close. So if you want to find out who's got the track record of actually fighting quality opposition and getting big fights done, I mean, Joshua against Povetkin. Povetkin's no pushover. That's a very dangerous fight. So, anyway, one of the theories, just to wrap up here, one of the theories that the Wilder fanboys are running with at the moment is that Joshua wants to fight Povetkin, or Hearn wants Joshua to fight Povetkin first to help launch the DAZN platform in the United States, because they're saying that this Joshua Povetkin fight is going to be on DAZN. And DAZN at the moment doesn't have any big fighters signed. So if they can get Joshua Povetkin on DAZN, that's going to be a huge deal for DAZN, right? That's going to help them launch in the United States. It's going to get a lot of subscribers off the back of this Joshua Wilder beef. And so some people are saying, yeah, that's the real reason that Eddie Hearn wants the Joshua Povetkin fight first and why he has delayed the Joshua Wilder fight. That isn't the most implausible explanation that the Wilder fanboys have come up with. That one is at least rooted in some kind of logic, okay? In that scenario, it's not Joshua necessarily who is blocking the fight. And see, this is where Wilder's been contradicting himself. On one hand, Wilder says he believes Joshua wants to fight. And then in the next breath, he's saying Joshua's a coward and he's scared and he's not a real man, he's not a real champion. He contradicts himself all the time, Wilder. But in the scenario I just described, where Eddie Hearn is basically blocking the fight, and he's saying, no, we need to build up this DAZN platform, I'm thinking about myself. I'm not really thinking about Joshua, because Joshua might leave me. He hasn't re-signed his contract. He hasn't signed an extension with me. So let's try to get him to fight Povetkin on DAZN. And then after that, you know, whatever, hopefully, even if we lose Joshua, we've still got some type of foothold in the United States with DAZN. You know, maybe that's a plausible scenario. I don't know. I'm just throwing out what these Deontay Wilder fans are saying now. That it's all about Eddie Hearn and DAZN, and he's just using Joshua for that. You know, in a fight that he thinks Joshua can win on DAZN. And then off the back of that, if Joshua signs with Hearn, then he'll make the Wilder fight. So, again, that's just what some of the Wilder fanboys are saying. And obviously, the Joshua side of the argument, they're saying it's Wilder who's actually using Joshua for publicity. If you look at Wilder's track record, this guy don't want to fight nobody. He's like, what is he, 41 fights in? Who's he fought? He's had double the number of fights that Joshua's had. And yet he hasn't fought anywhere near as many high quality fighters as Joshua has. So clearly, if you look at their track records, you can tell who the real coward is. This is what a lot of people on the Joshua side are saying. that it's Wilder's team who were deliberately running down the clock because they knew that Joshua had to fight Povetkin, so they were going to try and act like they wanted the fight when they didn't want it really. They're saying that Deontay Wilder's team have lost their pen. Why don't they sign? Why have they taken so long when it comes to signing paperwork? They're saying that Hearn gave them a contract a week ago, whenever it was, 10 days ago. They still haven't signed it and sent it. They asked for clarification on 2 points. The clarification has been clarified. Still no signed contract. They're saying give us till Friday. And then the WBA are getting tired of the whole charade and they're saying, you know what? Nah. Sort the Povetkin fight out now. There's lots of pressure on us from Povetkin and Ryabinski, who's Povetkin's promoter, who's a very, very powerful man. They want their shot. They're not just going to wait in the wings and do nothing. Ryabinski and Povetkin, they're powerful people in boxing. Don't underestimate how powerful they are. They outbid the Klitschkos. That's how powerful they are. They outbid Al Heyman. Remember that? When Deontay Wilder got outbid by Povetkin's people? When Povetkin was his mandatory? Yeah. Talking about Al Heyman having a limitless supply of money. Well, he didn't have a limitless supply of money then, did he? When it came to bidding against Povetkin's people. So, yeah, there's back and forth between both camps. There's back and forth between both fighters. And all of us are just trying to piece together what's going on with half the puzzle pieces missing. We're trying to paint a picture with half the puzzle pieces missing as best we can. All I can hope, as I keep saying, is that the fight gets made regardless. Even if Joshua Wilder don't happen next, hopefully it gets signed so they can get through their next fights, fingers crossed, and then after that, they can unify with each other. We'll see. But when it comes to Joshua being a coward, people, it just don't stack up. Calling a man a coward who's done all he's done in boxing and fought all the guys he's fought in 21 fights, when your guy Wilder hasn't achieved half as much in double the number of fights, it's some joke business. Facts. Anyway, drop your comments in the comment section below, people. It's Satman, I'm out.